What's going on, guys? MakerMods here, back at it again with another new video. Today we're taking a closer look at the new Bakeneko 65 from CannonKeys. Before we get started, there's one person who needs to be credited for this simple keyboard for DIYers. KKatano, or KKatano on GitHub and Keycaps. If you haven't heard of him, he's the designer of both the Bakeneko 65 and its little brother, the Bakeneko 60. This open source design is inspired by the Singa Unicorn and the OTD 356 Mini, but it's simpler to manufacture and also simple to build. The Bakeneko is a single piece tray mount aluminum case, similar to the KBD Fan's Tofu, with an AIO3 unified daughter board and an O-ring friction fit mounting system. What's unique about the CannonKeys version is that they modified the design to manufacture using cast aluminum instead of CNC milling like most other boards on the market. Casting is a process where molten metal is poured into a mold and quickly cooled, whereas CNC, or computer numerical control, uses what's basically a robot cutting machine to mill the shape out of a solid block of aluminum. The main benefits to a cast process versus CNC are scalability and cost, as CNC milling can be extremely expensive and time-consuming. On the other hand, a cast aluminum case doesn't really anodize well because the aluminum alloys used in the casting process prevent a good anodized finish. To get around this issue, CannonKeys went with powder coating and painting for the Bakeneko 65, depending on the color. Here we have the navy, which is painted. Another unique feature of the CannonKeys Bakeneko 65 is the internal weight, which isn't in KKatano's original design. The weight here is cast zinc. Zinc has a density of about 7 grams per centimeters cubed, which is pretty close to the brass, which has a density of roughly 8 to 8.5 grams per centimeters cubed based on the alloy. With the zinc weight version, the unbuilt board weighs 910 grams. If you're looking for a lighter and slightly cheaper alternative, there's a silicone insert option that replaces the weight and that weighs only 590 grams unbuilt. That version is $20 cheaper at $145 to $150 based on the color for A-stock, with the zinc weight A-stock version running $165 to $170 based on color. I did an unboxing video already that I'll link in the description, but this build kit from CannonKeys comes with everything you need to build the board minus the switches and keycaps. It also comes with a carrying case, which in my opinion makes this a phenomenal deal for an aluminum keyboard with an internal weight. The board comes with an FR4 plate and a hot swap PCB. I've built mine using Harimaus switches from Rebult keyboards, which are manufactured by JWK. They're long pole, hyper tactile switches that have basically no pre or post travel and a large tactile bump similar to Zyko's. I won't be doing a full review on these switches because I found them to be kind of expensive and uninspiring. The stock springs have a really annoyingly high pitch, so I swapped them out for some 65-gram chewy springs from SwagKeys. The spring swap helped turn these switches from like a pre-puberty squeaky to slightly more tolerable, but I'm very surprised that a nylon top and a nylon blend bottom could sound this high-pitched. There's a lot that goes into switch sound, but if I had to guess, I'd say the long pole stem and maybe the thinner plastic that JWK switches are kind of known for is to blame. I lubed the switches with Tribosis 3204 because I figured a slightly thicker lube could only help the switch sound. The springs were honestly another letdown for me. Since SwagKeys is based out of Korea, I expected high quality Korean springs, but I found them to be pretty inconsistent in both actuation and ping. However, they're definitely an improvement from the stock springs, although I'd recommend Kinetic Lab Symmetrics because in my own experience, they're consistent and have little to no spring noise. I hand lube the springs with Krytox 205G0 for consistency. So overall, I can't recommend the Harimaus switch because Anubis, Neapolitan, and even Boba U4Ts are better and safer options if you're looking for a very tactile switch. So why am I building the board with these switches? Well, a Bakeneko is a mythical cat creature, and the Harimau is a Malaysian tiger, so I thought I'd keep this board feline themed. For the keycaps, you already know, it's Cat PBT from SwagKeys. Another thing to note before getting into the sound test is the stabs. The kit comes with cherry clip-in stabilizers, and the general consensus is that due to the O-ring mount design, screw-in stabilizers won't fit due to interference with the O-ring. However, I was able to use Staebies from AEBoards, and they work just fine with a caveat. The stock 50A and the more elastic 30A O-rings had no problems, but the denser 70A O-ring does not have enough compression that you need to squeeze the PCB into place. The main issues are with the backspace and spacebar stabilizers, where they are along the channel where the O-ring sits. One final point I wanted to make was the left side of the board. The O-ring is mostly held in place by the switches themselves, but on the left side, the plate protrudes a little too much much past the edge of the switch on the PCB because of how the mod keys are spaced. As a result, the O-ring defaults to riding under the plate, and that leads to bare FR4 rubbing against the aluminum case. To fix this, I used some scrap pieces of plate foam to make a wall so the O-ring would sit properly. As for the O-rings, the different weight of the O-ring didn't really seem to make too much of a difference. There's definitely more bounce when you use the lighter weight O-ring when you're trying to flex the PCB, but I think that because of the stab swap and the blocker between the arrow keys, there's less of an effect on the typing experience unless you're really heavy-handed while you're typing. However, they are pretty cheap, and I'd personally recommend picking up the lighter O-ring if you want a slightly more bouncy typing experience. I modded this board with a thin layer of PE foam, and I Tempest modded the PCB with one layer of 3M blue painter's tape. Let's go to the sound test. In my previous build video, you can hear a sound test with the board and switches completely stock, and I wasn't really impressed with how it turned out. The stock stabilizers are pretty loud and rattly, and the sound profile of the board was kinda just okay. However, after I swapped out the stabilizers, this board really came alive, and it's become my daily driver at both work and at home. I think with some thocky linears, this board would sound even better, but I'm blown away by how nice this board is, especially for the price. Comparable boards in this price point include the TKC Portico and the NK65 Entry Edition, both of which are plastic cases for a similar price. The KBD Fans Tofu 65 is $20 more, and it is tray mount with a brass weight, and it also weighs 200 grams more. However, if you're looking to build your first mechanical keyboard, I don't think it really gets better than this, especially for the price. The Bakeneko 65 is a great option that can grow with you as you get more adventurous with mods, and is really easy to tune and experiment with because the mounting system is screwless. If you're in the market for a 65% board, I'd say you should definitely pick one up. One other honorable mention that I'm excited to take a look at one day is the newly announced Keychron Q2. It's been crowned by Shoobs as the best entry-level mechanical keyboard, and I'd be interested to see how it holds up against the Bakeneko 65. But anyways, that's gonna be it for me today, guys. This was my first keyboard review, so let me know in the comments below if I missed something that you'd like to know about, and what you thought about the format. Thanks for watching, I love you, and have a great day. I'm MakerMods, and I'll catch you in the next video.